The Irrational Confidence Podcast. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of The Irrational Confidence Podcast. We're talking college football, and it is week number 5. It is a jam-packed weekend for college football. It's a loaded weekend. We got top 5 matchups. We have undefeated teams going to places that they've never been before. And I'm joined by my co-host, the man who shops at a pawn shop, but only to buy a chessboard. My co-host, Fresh. Fresh, how you doing, buddy?
Wow, that was actually pretty good. You dug pretty deep for that one. Haps, I'm doing great. Big Saturday of college football coming up ahead of us. I can't believe we're already in week 5. A lot still to figure out from a bunch of teams. You know, we got Ohio State has played nobody. I think they're still pretty good, but they haven't played anybody yet, so we're going to start getting those tests coming through Big Ten play. Miami, have they really played anybody? Georgia, Alabama. Which one's real? You know, is it we have a classic brawl? Are we going to have a blowout? Is Kirby going to finally break through in a regular season and get a win over Alabama? You know, these are the kind of storylines we have. It's going to be exciting and intriguing set of games this week.
Yeah, when week 5 sits around the house, it sits around the house here, folks. So what we want you guys to do before we get rolling, listen, everyone.
First off, do not turn the broadcast off after his terrible jokes. Let's get past that. We can keep going.
This is where they all come from, the big book of dad jokes. So, folks, before we get rolling through our broadcast here, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, get notified every single time we drop a new episode. We're going to get into the week 5 preview here in a second, but it really helps us out. Leave us a like, leave us a comment along the ways. But here, let's rock, let's roll fresh. We're going into the first game of the weekend that we're previewing. This is Friday night. Currently, at time of record, the Miami Hurricanes, they're at home. They're a 19-point favorite. The Virginia Tech Hokies are coming into South Florida in Coral Gables. At time of record, the over-under is set at 54.5. Fresh, Virginia Tech, we had a lot of hope for them early on in the year. They're 2-2 on the season already. Miami has looked like world beaters. They're 4-0. They're demolishing opponents. They're taking them to the woodshed. They're beating the living trash out of them, as you would say. Fresh, Miami going to 5-0, or is Vitek got something to say about this?
Well, apropos, we have a hurricane coming up on the panhandle here of Florida and probably going to go into Georgia, so that just means Hurricanes going to win big this week. This used to be a great Big East matchup. You know, Michael Vick taking on those great Miami defenses. You're right. We had a lot of love for Virginia Tech at the beginning of the year. We saw drones and then offense would finally get going, the defensive play. They have been one of the most disappointing teams early on this season. It's been pretty terrible. You lose to Vanderbilt, which Vanderbilt's actually proven to be a pretty solid program that's really grown this year for Clark Lee. But it's just haven't seen that, all right, we shook that one off. We're ready to go and operate. They've just been up and down. Ugly, sloppy, slow. It looks like the Hokies from 2 years ago. Because last year we kind of saw them, all right, they're getting some momentum there at the end of the year. Maybe they can carry us to the 24. We're seeing the 2021, 2022 version of Virginia Tech right now, and it's pretty bad. I don't really think they have much of a chance unless Miami just pulls a Mario Cristobal and just bleeps the bed. The Hurricanes. You can come out here and just take care of business. Do not get too high on your horse. Don't look ahead. Cam Ward, Martinez, all those receivers, Restrepo, you know, especially, just come out one play at a time. Do your thing. Everyone's watching. Everybody's watching on Friday night. You have a chance to really, again, sell your program, showcase, only show in town, do your thing. If you come out there and look flat or you lay a clunker and you get upset, give everybody up, same old Miami. We're still waiting on the U. The U is not here. But you have a chance of going 5-0, locking yourselves in as the top 8 team in the country, top 6 team in the country, and really showcasing that the ACC is ours. As we talked before, the ACC is wide open. Clemson's starting to show life lately, but everybody else is just beating each other up, but not looking absolutely like world beaters outside of Miami. So secure your spot, take down Virginia Tech, do it with authority, and lock yourselves in everyone's mind that, all right, that's the team to beat. The Hurricanes are back. And get it done. If we need to see now the level of play is going to be better. Yes, you beat SAMU, you beat USF, you beat an average at very, very best, most likely a terrible Florida team. This is your chance to really showcase and to stack wins and beat more respectable programs. So go out there and do not lose the opportunities. If you choke, same old Miami, no one's going to believe you. You might actually cost yourself an at-large bid by just having a stumble. People will remember a loss to Virginia Tech on a Friday night when you're a more superior team, walking on that football field. In the end, I think the Hurricanes have this thing wrapped up by halftime. It will be a beatdown, Cat 5 warning, have the flags out ready to go. Hokies, thanks for showing up to South Florida. Thanks for coming to Miami Gardens. Have a safe trip back home to Blacksburg.
Talk a little bit about the Hokies here, Fresh. The thing that kind of boggles my mind is the Hokies haven't been awful on defense. They've actually been fairly good on defense. 13 sacks on the year. They're getting pressure to the quarterback there as well. And you take a look at their defensive line. Their defensive line has really been pretty nasty up front and created a pass rush. That's going to be the interesting thing. I think that this is the first really strong pass rush that Miami is going to have to face, where you're going to have to get around and block somebody and make sure that you give Cam Ward full protection here. Doesn't mean I don't think Miami's going to win. Don't think it means that it's not a task that I think that the Hurricanes can't handle. But it is something that if we're going to talk about Virginia Tech, again, I think the disappointment for me for Tech is going to be on the offensive side of the football. I thought Drones would be better than he is right now. He's completing under 60% of his passes. Their running game has been good. They're, a little bit over 750 yards. They're got 9 scores on the day, but they really need a better passing attack than what they have. Virginia Tech, yeah, you may be able to be a mediocre ACC team by running the football and playing good defense and being able to rush the passer. But in a game like this, Drones is going to have to throw the football all over the place. He's going to have to complete more than 60, maybe closer to that 70% elite mark for his passes there. You can't take sacks. You can't turn the ball over. All of those adages that all of us already know in football. But when you look at this, where could Virginia Tech make this a game? Again, you talk about Miami, you can't be upset in this game. You can't even have a close loss in this piece. And I'm going to get back to that part here in a second here, Fresh. Where would Virginia Tech be able to do it? It's going to be up front if they're able to get after Cam Ward and get him into 3rd and long consistently in there. I still think Miami's going to weather the storm and win this football game, but that's how Virginia Tech's going to be able to make it close. They're going to have to rush the passer, and they're going to have to play a ball control type of offense. I don't think they're going to be able to do it. Flipping over to the Hurricanes, though, for me, I've been thinking a lot about this Miami team ever since last week when we did our wrap-up show here, Fresh. And we were talking about, Miami looks like one of the best teams. Them and Texas have just looked like world beaters since week 1. I think it's interesting that we put those teams together because I've been asking myself all week, is this Miami Hurricanes team Texas from 22 or Texas from 23? I think that there's a lot of similarities between the two programs. Remember, Texas has grown over time to come back. It didn't happen automatically. For a decade, Texas was kind of like, they weren't Texas. They weren't the same team that we grew up with. And all the time we were like, well, when's Texas going to be back? When Texas is going to be back? And Sark did it gradually. And in 22, they were 8-4 in the regular season. And people are starting to say they're not fully back yet, but we're seeing those glimpses of them. Now, I think Miami's on a much better path. They're not going to be 8-4. But then last year, you see what Texas does, makes the 4-team college football playoff. And really, that's when they announced themselves, hey, we're back. And they've continued that role into this year. Same question I have for Miami. Where are you closer to? Are you closer to 22 Texas where you're building that up and you're only going to have a year of Cam Ward, so you're going to need someone right behind him to really take over the reins? Or are you closer to 23 Texas where you're ready to compete with the big boys and be where the big boys play because they have invested so much into NIL deals? This defense, a couple weeks ago, I said, I need to see Miami's defense really come to play. 16 sacks on the year, 8 interceptions. They're forcing turnovers. This is starting to look like a Miami defense from the 80s here. The one question I have, this is what I want to see from them Friday night. It's not anything with Cam Ward. Cam Ward, 70% completion percentage already, 14-2. I want to see Lyles and Martinez dominate a game. We've seen Cam Ward dominate a game. We've seen the passing attack dominate a game. I don't feel like we've really truly seen the Miami rushing attack dominate a game. And when I'm talking about that, I'm not talking about Lyles or Martinez or even Allen having an 100-yard football game. I'm talking where you put up like 250 team rushing yards and like 3 scores. I'm talking where no matter what, they can stack 8 in the box and they know you're going to run it down their throat and they got nothing to do to stop them. If we see that out of a Miami team, and even against a lesser opponent, and again, I hate the fact that we're calling Virginia Tech a lesser opponent because the fan base deserves so much better. I love Virginia Tech. I love this fan base. I love that stadium. I love Blacksburg. But this is not a great football team. This should be a better football team. They deserve so much more. If Miami is able to do that, I'm really starting to feel like we're seeing 2023 Texas.
I mean, I think the offense is there. I want to see them beat down better teams. Not really having on their schedule that's going to give us much of a measuring stick. It still kind of feels the way they hit the portal. A lot of senior-laden guys. This is a very top-heavy program. How can they be sustainable in 24, 25, and 26? Mario Cristobal's recruited them since he showed up there, and they've been bumbling around for a while. So is this a one-year wonder because they won the Ward sweepstakes? We saw what Ward was looking at Florida State and Miami. Well, we saw what happened when Florida State didn't get Ward. They're trash. Would that the same thing happen at Miami if they got DJU and Ward had gone to Florida State? I think it's a quarterback, leading engine. I need to see Miami in 25. How do they continue to keep carrying forward? It's 26. How do they carry forward? Before I start talking like a Texas revival. This seems like a one-year blip on the radar, strike while the iron's hot, in my opinion, kind of like Florida State in 2023. It's 23 or 22.
Fair. All right, Fresh, let's go to our game that won our fan vote. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are not following us on the Twitter or the X or the Twix or whatever it's called these days, make sure you engage with us over there as well. We put a fan vote this week, one of the closest fan votes we've had in a long time here, Fresh. Usually that's dominated by 1 or 2 games, but it's the Wisconsin Badgers. They're going to the land of Hollywood. They're going to La La Land, going and facing the USC Trojans coming off of a tough loss in Ann Arbor. At time of record, USC is a 15.5-point favorite. Over-under is set at 51.5 points here. Fresh, let me give you a comparison for USC. Rocky 3 gets beat the crap out of Mr. T. Clubber Lang destroys him in the first fight. And USC gets destroyed by the Michigan pass rush in their first ever taste of Big Ten football play. They got the eye of the tiger here. Are they able to bounce back? Or is Wisconsin going to be able to get after them a little bit? Did we see how you beat USC? You pressure the quarterback and the offensive line is not able to keep up.
Well, first of all, pity the fool who thinks Wisconsin can actually compete in this ballgame. I have not seen anything from the Badgers in the first 3 weeks that gives me any sign that this offense and this defense are ready to compete at a high level. They struggled versus the first 2 opponents with South Dakota and Western Michigan. Western Michigan team that was absolutely horrendous last year came in there week 1 and gave them all they could handle. And then, yes, Tyler Van Dyke got hurt, but that defense wasn't really showing up to actually sound Jalen Miller on that Alabama offense a couple weeks ago. Luke Fickell, Tressel, Phil Longo, what are y'all doing? You get all these resources. You're in the Big Ten. You should be able to sell it, and you have gotten nothing changed. It is a boring product. There's no attacking on the defense. You have a solid corner and solid safety. There's no one up front 7 making plays. Usually they're a bunch of no-name players at Wisconsin who emerge over time as front 7 players. We don't see that right now. Chaney's a good linebacker, but he's not the difference maker. He's not the Watt out there who's getting 3 or 4 sacks a ball game. This Wisconsin team is a shell. Their offensive line has been abysmal. They have not been able to move anything at all this year, much less protect the quarterback on any kind of passing situation. Will Pauling, Williams, the whole coach of receivers, we're not getting anything pop. Maluzzi, Walker, the running backs, we're not getting that pop. This is not you want to make the splash higher. We go and get Luke Fickell for what he did in 2 years at Cincinnati. What are we getting in return? What are the Badgers faithful getting in return? Nothing. They're getting an average football team and an average recruiting class, nothing being produced on the field. Something has got to change. If you get beat here in this game to USC and you go back-to-back losses, and I've got a feeling if you lose, you're going to lose pretty heavily. You're 2-2. Where do you go from there? This is a program defining fork in the road for Luke Fickell and this entire coaching staff of this program. You've got to show up in the Coliseum and take on Lincoln Riley. You brought up the point of the blueprint is there. Wisconsin's offensive and defensive line are not going to be what Michigan's offensive and defensive line are, but you have to imitate the best you possibly can. I know you want to run the air raid, Phil. At some point, you see, like, you know what, we're going 2 tight ends. We're just going to run the ball down their throat. Get physical. I don't care about running this. Tyler Van Dyke's not playing the rest of the year. You have Braden Locke or you have Marbury Medor, whatever you want to call him, the freshman quarterback. To protect both of those kids, just go 2 tight and run the ball down their throat. Run left, run right, run center, 3.5, 4 yards of play. You just control the clock and be physical at the line of scrimmage. Challenge your offensive line to own the line of scrimmage. Because if you can't even do that, the most simplistic thing, this program's in trouble. Offensive linemen hate pass blocking, but it gets you paid. They love run blocking. Let them run block. Build their confidence up, because right now they look defeated, they look beaten up, and there's no hope. You've got to just get away from, we're going to come out and be this flash in the pan, air raid offense, and spread it along. It's not Wisconsin. I don't care who you are. That's not Wisconsin. They are a pro-style run-first approach. You try to change it. Now, one thing we've learned both playing college football 2025, you cannot make every team run a different playbook. You have to play to the team's strengths. Wisconsin is offensive lineman, run the football, control it, down distance, passing game, managing the situation, and playing good defense. And then you can control the pace and you play from ahead. That's what you have to do to beat USC. Your defensive front, you've got to attack. Your secondary, I think you got some talent back there to hang out and get after Miller Moss and that receiving corps, but you've got to apply pressure. They have not applied pressure in the first few weeks. Nobody got close to Jalen Milroe. Milroe, we'll talk about him later during our Georgia, Alabama preview, but the guy's a gifted athlete, has great moves, has a great arm. Not many people are going to contain him, but you at least need to make a try. They didn't really do much the first 2 weeks either. Where's his pass rush going to come on the defensive side? When are you going to start releasing that philosophy between Tressel and Tickle? Offensively, you're not playing right. Defensively, you're not playing right. 2-2 with a loss to Alabama and USC, not going to help you on the recruiting trail. It's going to really start hurting the locker room of that entire program. Fans are going to start tuning out. It's going to be a bad rest of the fall if you don't come in here at least show up. I'm not saying you're going to win, but if you get blown out by USC, who is already angry that they blew a game versus Michigan, you're in trouble. On the other side, Lincoln Riley. You hold them to 8 yards total offense in the second half, and in the last drive, your defense just gives up again. Challenge your defense this week. You gave 3 runs of 40-plus yards that really defined the entire football game, and you threw a pick 6. Yeah. That front seven played well. Your offense couldn't score early. You fell behind. You fought back, and you couldn't finish. Typical Lincoln Riley football team. Can't finish. You've got to challenge your entire locker room. You've made significant strides defensively. I think we made that point before, but you're still not there. Barry Alexander, where are you? You're getting paid buku millions of dollars to go out here, go from Georgia to USC. You didn't show up last year, and you weren't visible in the big house on Saturday. Go out there and make something happen. You're supposed to be a big-time nose tackle, 2 technique, 3 technique. Go out there and earn it. If you want to get drafted in the NFL, show us that you're actually worthy of it. Make a couple plays, shut down the running game. Be a bear for once. USC's offense, got to get a little kick-started early. When you played LSU, you went right down the field, you scored, you kind of said, all right, here, we're here to play. I didn't see that versus Michigan, and granted, Michigan's defense is pretty good, but you got to attack. Take the will of the Wisconsin Badgers team away from them early and on. If you let them hang around, they might be able to contend. I guarantee a lot of Badger fans are actually going to make the trip to the Coliseum because there's a lot out there in the Arizona, California area. It's going to be an easy trip for them to sort of meet up and watch their fans, watch their team play out in the West Coast. Do not let any of those. It's 100,000 people in the Coliseum. You're going to have about 20 to 30,000 Wisconsin fans probably sitting there. Do not let them be allowed in the second half. USC fans, show up, be aggressive. You have a football team here that needs your support. Do not tune this one out. Do not let the Wisconsin Badger fans come in. At least give their team a chance and give them some hope. This has got to be about a statement of a program's will. USC, are you truly ready to compete and move forward and show that you change your culture? Or are you just going to be another flash in the pan Lincoln Riley football team that, when all is said and done, are just a hollow paper tiger? I struggle right now trying to think that Wisconsin can win with a backup quarterback, and it's still kind of undecided who that is, and no true evident offense. I think they muck around early in the first half, but the second half, USC is going to pull away. Miller Moss looking pretty confident in the pocket. I think he has a nice afternoon once it's all said and done. USC bounces back and gets a win, but Wisconsin makes it a fight in the first half.
Here's the thing that when I dove into USC, we want to put a lot of stock in week 1 against LSU. Want to put a lot of stock in that game. And then week 2, they beat Utah State, and they absolutely smoke them. They get a bye week going in against the Wolverines in Ann Arbor. And then they kind of lay a dud. Here's what's concerning for me. The underlying trend between these games here, Fresh, is USC's inability to stop the run. And that's what plays into Wisconsin's hands in this. Going to the backup quarterback, because you don't have Tyler Van Dyke, you are going to lean on that stable of running backs that you have in Madison. And you go back and look at the LSU game, and LSU still got 4.5 yards per carry. Michigan put up 6.9 yards a carry, 290 yards on this USC defense. I think that USC can be run on. I really do. And, we want to criticize Wisconsin. And again, I was trying to think about this going, all right, we give everyone a break during week 1 because there is no preseason. And Wisconsin didn't look great against Western Michigan, but they still walked out with a W and still wound up winning in the second half pretty strongly. They struggled with South Dakota. Okay. And then Alabama comes and smacks them in the mouth. All right. USC is not Alabama. I don't think that they are even close to that level. I don't think they have the hogs up front for this. I honestly think if Wisconsin can, and I'm going to say this right now, if I'm Luke Fickell and I'm making the game plan this week for the Badgers, I am saying we want to possess the ball for 36 minutes in this football game. We want to run the football. We want to run the football again, and then maybe run the football a third time. And then depending on, maybe we'll run on fourth down as well. I want to go 3 yards in a cloud of dust type of running against them. And I'm going to make this game very, very ugly and beat them up front. Here's the reason why I think that they do that. I think that USC early on in this football game is going to sell out to stop the run and force one of the young quarterbacks to beat them. I think that's what's going to happen. The difference is I think this USC team will eventually wear down in that situation. As Wisconsin continues to try, it's kind of like punching that brick. You keep on hitting it, and you aren't making any damage whatsoever. And then all of a sudden you start chipping it. And you see these little breaks come out. If we start seeing Wisconsin break off runs of 6-7 yards in the second quarter, watch out for this game. Because then I feel like Wisconsin is in line to do something big where they're going to hit a big run, get a couple of touchdowns. Now, are they going to be able to stop USC's offense? Are they going to be able to stop the run game and Miller Moss in this? I don't know about that. That's a bigger question. But how does Wisconsin do this and pull the upset? 36 minutes of ball control offense and running the football, being able to run it down USC's throat here as well. Fresh, I'm with you. USC is going to win this football game. I honestly think Wisconsin's going to give USC a battle. I'm seeing like a 31-27 type of game, 31-24 type of game, somewhere in there. I like I like Wisconsin and the points in this game. But that's just me. I just think that Wisconsin's really going to control the line of scrimmage in this football game. They're not going to get enough stops to keep it. Where it doesn't get completely out of hand.
I don't see them scoring more than 20 points, and that offensive line has not shown me they can control the line of scrimmage. So if they do, major props to them. But this is just 1 year and 3 games in where they have not shown any of that, fortitude. And this is going to start to become telling on Luke Fickell that if you don't win here with Wisconsin to put up a decent season, you were just a 2-year blip at radar in Cincinnati in the AAC, and you had really to play for 2 games your entire time. And reality is going to catch up with you real quick. So this is a program. Again, we're back to a program sort of setting where's the direction of the Wisconsin football team since he's arrived?
Right. All right, Fresh, let's go to a game of undefeateds. One of them a surprise, one of them not so much. The Illinois Fighting Illini, they're a surprising 4-0. Brett Bielema's got that team playing real good football up there in Champaign. They're going down to Happy Valley. This is a 7:30 night game, but it's not a whiteout somehow. And they're playing the Penn State Nittany Lions. They're 3-0. At time of record, Penn State is an 18.5-point favorite in this game. Over-under is set at 47.5. I actually really like the under in this one because I think both these teams are really going to play some defense. And Illinois, there's still some stuff out there, but they've impressed me. I got to give them a lot of credit. They had a big win last week going into a hostile environment like Lincoln, Nebraska. Fresh, where are you seeing Illinois versus Penn State?
Illinois has been scrappy. You win at Nebraska, you beat Kansas. They haven't scored a ton of points, but they've won. And it's kind of a no-name kind of team. Like a couple of years ago, obviously, Witherspoon, the whole secondary was good for them. They had Chase Brown, running back. It's just like a no-name football team who's just getting it done. And it's not because Zachary Franklin. It's not, Luke Altmar's been solid. It's the defense of just guys who are flying around tackling, offensive linemen who are playing at a high level. Last time Illinois traveled to Happy Valley was in 2021, and it was ugly, but they pulled off the upset. What was it, triple, quadruple overtime? I can't remember.
It was 6 overtimes. It was fantastic. It was ugly, but it was fantastic.
It's like no scoring,
right?
But it was a typical James Franklin game. Just has no clue what's going on and loses the clunker, and everyone wonders why is this guy still employed. I feel like Penn State's a little more focused this time because Illinois is ranked, and Illinois at the time a couple of years ago they weren't very good. That was kind of the beginning of the Brett Bielema resurgence in 21 and 22. Now they're a little better. They're going to have their attention. They'll be ready. It's a night game. I think they'll be fired up, and it's going to be a real challenge for Illinois to keep the momentum now that they're expected to win. Believe me, we both took Nebraska to beat Illinois last time. Everyone thought after them being Colorado and Raiola and Matt Rule and being a night game and Lincoln that they were going to show up and just take care of business. And Illinois went there and they said, that's great. Waved at them and walked out with the dub. Brett Bielema in his press conference this week, taking shots at Happy Valley, taking shots at the Penn State faithful, saying that Memorial Stadium in Lincoln, Nebraska is a much more hostile environment. I got a feeling that's going to turn up a couple notches, and those fans for Penn State are going to be a little lubed up all afternoon and be ready to go to provide the extra energy into the fourth quarter. The best way for Illinois to win is to keep the same recipe they've had this year and the past couple of years under Brett Bielema. Run the football, simple passes. Do not try to get too pass happy. Control the pace of the football game. Force turnovers. You're going to have to score touchdowns to beat Penn State. You can't kick field goals, but also holding them. Bend but don't break mentality. Getting out and off the field. Drew Allar will give you a couple of them if you sort of wait your time. The upset is possible, but it's going to require Illinois to keep their minds straight and be able to execute on every single play. On the other side, Penn State. Last time we truly saw them in the spotlight nationally is where they just stormed through West Virginia. Last week, they tore up Penn State. The week before, they actually had a nice little fight with Bowling Green. We're going to just what is Penn State? They look great week one. They had the whole offseason prepared. Past 2 weeks, like you talked about, Kent State, not really much of an opponent. And the week before, Bowling Green gave them a fight, and they were lucky enough to get out of that thing without being upset. Where's the mentality? Where's the mindset of this Penn State football team? Offensively, defense, are they ready to attack, lights out, play focused football, play disciplined football? Are they ready to feed off the crowd? If they let Illinois hang around, it could be problematic. You've got to come out here and show. There's not many games. We talk about Penn State. Not many games are just scheduled with ranked opponents outside of a typical Oregon or Ohio State or Michigan. You have a chance here against Illinois ranked to get a win and add a resume builder. Do not blow this opportunity if you want a playoff spot. You have to come in here, seize the chance. If Illinois pulls off this upset, I don't really care if Penn State goes 11-1. It's going to be very, very tough for me to have them as a top 10 seed. But you lose to Illinois, I don't expect Illinois to sustain success the entire year. You've got to just come in here, get your dub, and head off to next week and do your business. Take care of business. I want to see a little more from the Penn State passing game. I want to see if they can challenge the secondary of Illinois, push the ball downfield, because as time goes forward, you're going to need that passing game to help supplement that running game. If they can start creating balance and using that, it'll be very successful. But in the end, I don't care how pretty it is. I don't care how ugly it is. Just get a W, survive in advance, and move on. James Franklin, you need to start being a legit Big Ten football coach and get these wins. You cannot have the choke losses. You cannot miss opportunities. If you want to be taken seriously, get Penn State to the playoff. In the end, I think Penn State takes care of business. I think they win by a touchdown, more like a 27-20, 24-17 kind of ball game. I think it'll be a little more high scoring than usual because I think the guys will be amped up and things will start popping, early in the ball game and late will sort of settle. But it'll be a nice little fun affair. Penn State will win by a touchdown. But Illinois will prove that they're a worthy top 25 football team.
Fresh, last week we were discussing Illinois going up against Nebraska. And again, I give Illinois a lot of credit, being able to go into a tough – I'll give Lincoln a solid nod, tip of the cap to them because that is a tough place to play. Brett Bielema, cool your jets about comparing Lincoln, Nebraska to Happy Valley. I don't like when my team goes into Happy Valley. We saw a couple of years ago when Auburn went north of the Mason-Dixon, tried to win in Happy Valley. It's not an easy place to play. It's a tough stadium. It's one of the largest in the entire country. Here's the thing. We talked about this last week, Fresh, the difference with Luke Altmaier this season. Last season, he was kind of an up-and-down quarterback. He turned the football over. This year, dude's completing over 71%. He's closing down 72% of his passes, 10 touchdowns to no interceptions. That's where the difference is coming in for this Illinois offense as well. They're balancing it out. They got a nice rushing attack there with Figgins. And like you've said multiple times, Fresh, we're recorded out of Jacksonville, Florida. Pat Bryan out of Atlantic Coast High School, the senior over there, is really showing off 6 touchdowns already on 20 catches as well. Zahari Franklin is going to be the one that everyone kind of gets the spotlight. But you take a look at what Bryan's done over there, pretty awesome stuff to see the Jacksonville boys kind of showing out as well. As for Penn State, for me, Fresh, there's a lot of talk that's going to be on Alar, and he's completing 71% of his passes, 8 touchdowns to 1 interception. But I really think the difference is how strong Nicholas Singleton has been. We've been waiting for this for 2 years. Nicholas Singleton has been one of the best potential running backs in all of college football since the day he put on a Penn State jersey. This year, he is averaging over 8 yards a carry. On 37 carries, he's got over 300 yards. The problem I have with him is he's only found the end zone twice so far. That really makes me question. I know he splits carries about 50-50 with Katron Allen, but Singleton has been the bell cow in that backfield. This is a game where with Illinois' defense, with how strong they are, I want to see Nicholas Singleton go off in this football game. I want to see a 100-yard game out of him. I want to see 2 touchdowns as well. The other thing, too, Fresh, is where's the passing attack? Where is the elite receiver as well? They got in Julian Fleming from Ohio State. He transferred in. His ESPN pitcher right now looks like he should be teaching Philosophy 305 instead of being out on the football field. But maybe he is. Maybe he's a grad. Maybe he's a grad transfer.
He's on the quad.
He's teaching philosophy 305. I don't know. This offense has got to have a little bit more of that big playability. They've had a couple of big strikes as well, but it's been the conversation since last year. It's been a conversation on a lot of different shows that you look at. Wisconsin getting those big chunk plays. Are they able to do that? This is the good test because, again, West Virginia, all year long, jack up for that. Week 2, Bowling Green gives you everything you can handle. And Bowling Green gave Texas A&M everything they can handle. So maybe we should put some respect on Bowling Green's name a little bit here. And then Kent State is maybe the worst college football program in Division I right now. Probably should be demoted to FCS. Yeah. I'm just saying maybe we promote either Mount Union or Heidelberg.
Give me some relegation.
Yeah, maybe bring Heidelberg up. I don't know. Mount Union, the Purple Raiders. It's another Ohio team they can play up. This is a key game for me, though, to see what Penn State really is made of because it's going to tell us a lot where they are going season. The teeth of their schedule is going to start coming up here in the next few weeks. Penn State, this is where you got to start something big and go on from there. In the end, I like Penn State as well. I like Penn State by about 4 in this game. That 18.5, though, is really, really scary for me because I think Illinois is going to be fired up. I think that they're going to cause all sorts of problems for the Penn State offense there. But again, I think Nicholas Singleton, big game out of him, 2 touchdowns for him. Alar's going to throw a touchdown as well. Nittany Lions win this football game.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be one of those. It's obviously kicking off the same time as the Georgia-Alabama game, so maybe commercial breaks, you switch over to NBC, you take a peek, or you watch it on tape the next day. Unless you are an Illinois Penn State fan, you're probably not going to watch this game. So it's also a way where if Penn State struggles, it's kind of like the tree fall in the forest and nobody heard it. So it's one of those, it's going to be an interesting situation where if they do struggle and voters are like, well, I wasn't watching the game, I have no idea, it actually might be a blessing instead of a curse.
Yeah, this Saturday night is a sports bar type of night. You want to have 3 or 4 multiple TVs in front of you to be able to keep up with all of the different games. All right, Fresh. One of the biggest games from last season, we get a rematch. Was this the game that you called down to the wire, or was that Duke Notre Dame?
That was Duke Notre Dame. This one cost me money in Vegas last year. I was not too happy.
No, okay. Well, hey. You're in Vegas.
All right.
Yeah. All right, folks, we're talking about the Louisville Cardinals. They are traveling to South Bend, Indiana. They're going to take on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Louisville is 3-0. Notre Dame 3-1. At time of record, Notre Dame is a 6-point favorite. Over-under is set at 46.5. Man, Fresh, we're still feeling the residual effect of that Northern Illinois loss with Notre Dame there. Big win week 1, beat Texas A&M. Week 2, you get upset by Northern Illinois. Huge win at Purdue. Big stomp down on the Red Hawks of Miami of Ohio. Louisville's got the next matchup. Outside of this, after this game, Notre Dame's schedule is cruise control until that last week versus USC. Maybe Georgia Tech gives them an issue, but this is really it for Notre Dame until the end of the season. What do you think?
I mean, we go back to the James Franklin where he can't coach in big games and kind of seem clunk it out. Marcus Freeman, we need you to show up, son. You coached great the past 2 years in Ohio State when you played them, but you never found a way to get the victory. We need to see it here. This is your chance to really have a shining cherry on top of the season. We take out Louisville, we get revenge, have a big ranked win, and sort of put Notre Dame's like, all right, we believe again, or at least we kind of semi-trust the Irish to be a formidable football team at an elite level. That Northern Illinois loss is going to hang in people's minds for a long time. And this is a chance where you can go out here and beat down on a ranked opponent and maybe make people forget that one or at least think about it less. This is that moment. If you struggle with Louisville or you lose, 2-loss Notre Dame team with this schedule, I'm not sure that that's a playoff quality football team.
Right.
That'll be a major
That'll be
debate.
tough.
Like, you might have a 9-3 team get in ahead of a 10-2 because that's schedule. And you don't take advantage of opportunities.
Right.
So you've got to have the team focused. And before I go into breaking this game down, Notre Dame and NBC have had an agreement for a long time. Why is this game on Peacock at 3:30 on Saturday afternoon? What is on NBC that is better? It's not Premier League soccer. What is on NBC in the afternoon that is supplementing and pushing this Irish Louisville ranked opponent to Peacock? Come on.
Is there an answer to this, or do I need to look it up?
I'm just hypothetically yelling at the NBC executives. Like, this is ridiculous. You
All right,
this game to be on NBC, driving at home, getting able to put eyes on the Irish. Streaming services are great for maybe premier periphery games, but not your premier matchup. You don't do this here. So this is already has been my goat for this ball game. Riley Leonard, you've got to show up and be a little more productive in the passing game. Your ground game, you've been able to move the ball with your legs a lot. We've got to start seeing you in the air, push this ball down the field, and help Irish offense become a little more dynamic. 55, points you put up on Purdue is great. Your backups are scoring, fantastic, whatever. But against ranked opponents, if you want to go make even like a playoff run or be in the playoffs, the passing game has got to follow along. You cannot run the ball the entire time and expect to be successful. Riley Leonard, you are 65 for 103 for 587, 1 touchdown pass to 2 receptions. That is unacceptable. Yeah, your team is 3-1, but you have got to be better in the passing game. And not just you, but the collective receivers, tight ends, running backs involved in that passing game. You've got to be better, Notre Dame. You've got to evolve your passing game. You've got to have some sort of balance on your offensive side. And against Louisville, who has an explosive offense, you have got to find ways to keep pace, especially if they jump on you early. Jeremiah Love, 46 carries, 339, 4 touchdowns, solid start to the season. But he's got to be productive. You've got to control the football, get him early carries, get him involved, get him lathered up, maintain down and distance, maintain time possession. But you've got also the passing game. If you can have success in the passing game, that opens up the running lanes for Love. It opens up the running lanes for Leonard. And now your offense really expands its opportunities and becomes a full-on threat to opposing defenses. You've got to find that balance. And to beat Louisville, you're going to have to throw the ball sometimes. Other side, Louisville, Tyler Shaw, who I've had issues with you. You're at Oregon, you weren't very good. Texas Tech, you weren't very good. Here you are in Louisville. So far, not too bad. 52 for 76, 815, 8 touchdowns. But now you're actually facing a legit defense. This Notre Dame defense is one of the top 10 in the country. I will say that maybe very liberally, maybe even top 8 in the country. They have guys in the secondary. They have pass rush. They have linebackers. How do you move the football against them? They are prepared for you. They are ready. And in your past, you've been very turnover prone. This is a big game. How do you show up and get the job done? At home last week for Georgia Tech was one thing. That Georgia Tech magic after the first, upset of Florida State is kind of worn off, and you're kind of seeing who they truly are. This is a much different defense. You've got to show up and make big boy throws, big boy plays for the Cardinal if you want to get them and stay alive in ACC. You're kind of hidden right now. It's like, so we forget about Louisville. Believe me, we've only talked about Clemson and Miami. Louisville's still a viable threat. But if Notre Dame can take them down, that's going to put some, all right, maybe they're not exactly 100% perfect out there. And there is just another ACC football team that looks good on paper or shows a couple of good games, but not really a true contender. Tyler Shaw, you've got to show up here and show that Louisville's a vehemently legit contender for an ACC title and for a playoff spot. If you can command Notre Dame and pull up an upset, that's going to be a big-time win on the road and sort of show that last year wasn't a fluke and that Louisville's truly a foe that needs to be challenged and handled and dealt with by Clemson, by Miami, or anybody else in the ACC as the season moves forward. And it also shows that Coach Braun can do it at 2 years in a row. It's not just a 1 year, wonder sort of sneak up on everybody. Another person I want to see have a big game for Louisville, Ashton Diaty. If Ashton can show up and bring in his sack numbers from the past 2 years, that's Louisville in a good spot. 11 sacks in 23. He had 7 sacks in 2022. He's only had 1 sack so far in 2024. Ashton, I need you, pal. You've got to bring your pass rush in. You've got to get to Riley Leonard. Be disruptive. Be a force. Because if you are, that means Louisville's having a great day. If you're non-existent in a big game, it kind of worries me about, are you stuck against terrible teams? Have you lost your juice? Are you getting chipped and doubled up? How's this going? Or, you know what? You might not get sacked, but if you're drawing, a tight end and a tackle, and you're allowing your rest of your defensive linemen or linebackers to get pressure, you're doing your job. But where does Louisville's pressure come from, and how do you have an impact on this football game? In the end, I don't know. I don't know if I trust the Irish, but I think the Irish defense is going to be the determining factor in this football game. I'm going to go Notre Dame 23-20 in a low-scoring, ugly affair. They're going to play great defense. They're going to find a way to squeak it out and get the W. Marcus Freeman will keep Notre Dame afloat in the playoff race, but Louisville will put up a heck of a fight, and this will be a great matchup in the afternoon to watch.
Fresh, I found out what is on Peacock, or I'm sorry, not Peacock, what is pushing the Notre Dame game to Peacock. It is the President's Cup, the golf tournament. That'll put butts in seats.
That'll put butts in the seats. Not even the final day. If it was Sunday, that's one thing. Let's put golf on Peacock on Saturday and put, come on, folks. Or even USA Network. Put golf on USA Network. Let's go. The other game, you're being kicked to Peacock.
Right.
Get your money back.
Fresh, here's the thing. When I was thinking about Notre Dame here, I used to listen to some Irish punk rock, a band by the name of Flogging Molly back in the day, and they used to have this song that used to say, like, let's raise what's left on the flag for me. And that's kind of how I feel about Notre Dame, is that they need to raise up the last couple of things they have in their schedule to make them look like an attractive playoff team. Because here's the thing. They lose this game, the only thing that is left on their schedule is a possible win against USC. And then they're really banking on that Texas A&M win early on in the season in Kyle Field. Yeah, it's a great win. It's a huge victory for Notre Dame. You dominated them in that football game. But what have you done for me lately? Like, you haven't beaten anybody. You have an upset to a MAC team on your schedule. Okay. Hey, letdown game, I get it. Huge emotional output in week one. It's a letdown game. It happens all the time in the NFL. These are kids. Those things happen. This is not a game where you can have a letdown game. But in this regard, Louisville plays into Notre Dame's hands. Everything Brom is wanting to do at Louisville is playing into the strengths of this Notre Dame team. Notre Dame has probably the best pass defense in the country. Watts and Morrison are studs. Like, those two guys are going to be playing in the NFL on Sunday, very, very in the very near future. Kaiser, the linebacker, we talked about Bertram for years over there. Kaiser, the linebackers, looked kind of really good as well. Bowen as well. They got some great linebackers, and they got a great pass rush as well. There's some other kids on there. You could talk about Snead. You could talk about, Osbury. You have a nice rotation on the back seven there, or back eight, even if you run three down linemen. You look at this team, Louisville is going to need to find a way to run the football, and I don't think that's in their DNA. I just don't think that's who they are. They're throwing the ball 88 times already in 3 football games. That means you're averaging right around 29 pass attempts a game, and you've run the ball maybe 30 times. I mean, people will go, well, that's a balanced offense there as well. But, you take a look, you're averaging, 6.4 yards a carry, but how much of that is propped up in a couple of these games that they're having so far? You take a look at the Austin Peay game. You ran the football like crazy against a scrubby team, and you averaged 10.5 yards per carry. I mean, come on, you're inflating your stats there as well. Louisville's got to find a counterpunch for their offense in this football game. Tyler Shaw, he's looked nice at Louisville, and maybe Brom is the quarterback whisperer. He's had some success there as well. Maybe that's what he needs. We put some respect on his name for that. He did some great things when he was at Purdue. They were real competitive back then. They've kind of fallen off with him. But where does Louisville get this? Where are they able to put this into a slugfest? Is Louisville's defense able to stop Notre Dame as well? Love had, we talked about SMA last year as one of the best running backs. You take a look at what Love has been able to do in his time filling in. Kid's averaging 7.4 yards a carry. He's got over 300 yards rushing. He's a strong candidate. He really is. This Notre Dame team is looking very, very good. They'd be a tough out in any of these games. They have to win this football game. You cannot lose this football game, Notre Dame. You cannot lose. The pressure is on them. And I think that's kind of the new world we live in, where you take a loss, you have a nice win. But if you take a bad loss like the Northern Illinois, your margin of error gets real small real fast, and especially even amplified at Notre Dame because you don't have a conference to play in. It'd be great if you were in the ACC right now or in the Big Ten or in the Big 12, wherever you were, and you had okay, I took a loss, but hey, as long as I win out in conference, I can get into the playoff as a conference champion. Not true. Notre Dame can't do it. Big time game for Notre Dame, man. I think the Irish are going to take this very seriously. I honestly think Shaw is going to throw 3 or 4 interceptions in this game. I think he's going to have fits with the Notre Dame secondary. Give me Notre Dame. I'd take Notre Dame in the points in this game.
I mean, I think, I already said Notre Dame was a close ball game, but you're right. I think that the interceptions are going to be a big play because Shaw in real big games, not much to shake his stick at. You're playing an elite secondary who's going to be pressuring the quarterback and getting after him. I think the loss is going to hang in their mind, especially from the coaching staff's perspective. And you made a great sort of point there. Not in a conference, so you're already starting at the 5th seed, the best possible outcome for Notre Dame going to playoff. Right. And every single loss from there, you start to tick down. So you can't miss any more opportunities. You've got to find ways to get this done and do it big.
Right. All right, Fresh. Let's go to another big game in the Big Ten. It's for me, I think that this is people don't want to say how big this game is because they only remember the Mel Tucker Michigan State Spartans. But Smith has got this Spartan team playing really tough. And again, it's just a continuation of what we saw over at Oregon State by him. But Ohio State is going on the road for the first time this year. They are 24-point road favorite up in East Lansing. Over-under in this game is 48.5. Listen, you talk about Ohio State's first 3 games, Akron, Western Michigan, Marshall. It is what it is, folks. Every couple of years, Ohio State's going to have a cupcake schedule. Every team does it on occasion. Just happens to be this year for the Buckeyes. Yeah, not worried about it. Rather do that and stay healthy because they got some big games coming up. I think this is the first one. Judkins has been the man for Ohio State. Fresh, talk to us. What's different? Let me ask you this question. So let's start instead of looking at the two teams. Let me ask you this question. What do you think the biggest difference Smith has done in East Lansing to really kind of, I don't want to say completely turn around the Spartans, but put Michigan State pointing in the right direction, trending up as a program?
Discipline and physicality. Kind of reminds me of a Mike D'Antonio.
It's a good point.
Experience. Mel Tucker, it was more flash in the pan, and they were undefeated, and they showed up in Columbus, and that game was over before the second drive the Buckeyes had. And then it all kind of fell apart from there. And it's kind of just been a mess for the past couple of years trying to deal with all that. Jonathan Smith, it's not going to be a one-year fix. It's going to be a multi-year fix. But discipline, holding players accountable, and being physical. That's what he was at Oregon State. They were physical at the line of scrimmage. They ran the ball. They threw play action when they wanted to. And they had an edge about them to be in the right place at the right time, defensively and offensively, execute. That is the exact same philosophy. I'm starting to see the blueprint being put up there in East Lansing. It's not going to help them on Saturday. It won't help them this year, but the foundation is being set. So I expect them to come out here against Ohio State and be competitive early. Ohio State will pull away, but they're going to be competitive. And that's going to be a foundation to look back and be like, hey, you know what? They came up here at the end of September last year. We played with them for a first half. So we played with them for 2.5 quarters. That's a checkpoint and a gauge of we have to get from there to the next point going into the next year. And then, from a physicality standpoint, we're going to hit you in the mouth. We're going to play the whistle. We are going to show up on every single play, make sure you know we're on that field and not lay down. We have seen teams lay down in the past, sort of just give up after you get a couple touchdowns. Like, all right, whether it's the NFL, Jaguars, I'm talking about you, or other teams,
Browns.
I got a feeling that mentality, you have to change that culture, and Jonathan Smith's going to do that. Physical and discipline will pay off 3 years from now and put them in Big Ten race. This week, I still think they have the weapons yet, but that foundation is being set.
Yeah, I agree with you there. It's interesting because, you looked at this game early on in the season, you think, Sparty's not going to be any good. It's Mel Tucker made that a wasteland. And again, Jonathan Smith's done a great job. Aiden Childs, give him credit. I know people will point to the interceptions, but we've had this conversation before where we both feel that there are certain times, and we talked about this maybe with Nico down in Tennessee, although he's kind of proven us a little wrong on this. But if you have a young quarterback who you know that you're only going to have maybe for 3 years, probably not going to have for that fourth, make the kid take his lumps. And I think that's what Jonathan Smith's doing to Aiden Childs is take your lumps this year, kid, get used to the speed of this game, get used to the physicality, and learn and being able to feed on your experience. And I legitimately think Aiden Childs will take a huge jump, whether we see a moment this season where we're just like, wow, Aiden Childs went off, or if it's maybe in the bowl game or early into next season leading this, where I think that there's a lot of benefit of what they're going through right now. But again, you said a great point about them being physical up there in East Lansing. This is a physical football team with their ability to run the football.
Well, you kind of look at, you probably point of Childs and developing quarterbacks. There's a philosophy like, we need to set them in the NFL. We need to let them learn behind the guy in front of us. But on the other side, sometimes you got to be like a Peyton Manning. Just get out there the first year, learn through experience, learn through game action. You can always see stuff in film. You can see stuff in practice. But you know what? He's going to go through all these motions. He's like, I saw that coverage last time. I know exactly where I made a mistake before. Now I'm going to rejudge how I'm going to take this approach, make a different throw, maybe dial it back. We've seen the excitement where he's a young quarterback. He just wants to throw it a million miles an hour. And so, you know what? I can take the dump down. I can take the check down route, get the completion, keep the drive going, as opposed to I'm going for the 30-yard, 40-yard, 50-yard, game breaker, which might have double coverage. You might have the safety over top that you don't see. You take the check down, you get 6-7 yard ball control, learning the football game from that perspective of growing up. And I think that's also what Jonathan Smith's going to help do is mature him, have that communication, have that experience and that growth. And then you will start to see you get paid dividends in bigger games down the road.
This Ohio State offense, too, man. I don't know how Michigan State's going to match up with this Ohio State offense. Judkins, we're seeing the form of Judkins that we saw in his freshman year, where the kid was an absolute monster. And then on top of that, you have a two-headed monster with him and Henderson. And then Jeremiah Smith has just been a dude. Like, that guy is the real deal. You can understand why he was the number one rated recruit on the season. 14 catches, 281, and 4 touchdowns. Yeah, we can talk all about the competition, but the kid's a freshman.
It's still him and Ryan Williams have just shown up day one and making plays left and right, and they are the real deal. But the offense. Howard is still want to see more from him, but Judkins playing well. Henderson, Emeka Buka, Smith, they're getting it done. And defensively, all the things that are being worked on that Jim Knowles defense, getting guys experience, rotating it in, rotating them out. I saw somebody laugh like Caleb Downs gave up 2 touchdowns. Like, dude, they're in preseason training right now. They are not trying. Those guys are going back 80%, maybe 75%. They're dialed it back. They're going to be trying out new formations, new communications. That's what you have the benefit of these 3 games right here.
Right.
I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to make a call, which I would probably never call in a normal situation in this game, or I want to see how it looks because I'm getting the look from them, and I'll use it down the road later on. But I want to teach the guys with live film. That's what this is all about. If they've had those three, now you have to turn those three preseason games, quote unquote, into reality as you build up toward your game versus Oregon, versus the game versus Michigan, because Michigan's looking a little better, and so on and so forth. Everyone already kind of knows Ohio State should run through the Big Ten, but how can you build yourself and be ready for the playoff? That's where they're going to make their meet, and that's where the expectations of the team is going to be. It's going to be the Saturday of Thanksgiving weekend, and then in the playoff, how does Ohio State respond, and are they worthy of making that run and winning those big games when they matter deep in the end of the year?
I saw one person, and again, this is on Twitter, so again, take it with a huge grain of salt here. But they made the point out that during the first two drives against Marshall last week, is Ohio State lined up in defensive formations that were different than what they had lined up in the previous two games. Like you hadn't seen the same type of defensive personnel and defensive lineup. And really what that screams to me is that Jim Knowles is trying stuff out. And again, you said it perfectly there, Fresh, where he goes, listen, we're going to try something out. We know we're going to come back and win in this football game. We're not going to lose these games here. Let's put this on live film so we have teachable moments. So, okay, you're in this defense. We're going up against a team that is going to do this. And here's where the play broke down. This is what you should do instead. And again, you have teachable moments where you put those things on tape. I want to see more out of the Ohio State pass rush. 9 sacks on the year with the level of competition you played is a little bit on the light side in my eyes. I want to see a better pass rush as well. Ohio State struggled a little bit with a mobile quarterback. Aiden Childs can get after and run. So how are you going to contain Aiden Childs in this one? Fresh, I still have the Buckeyes win huge. I'm a little leery on 24 as a road favorite. I think this is a 3-touchdown win. I don't necessarily know if it's a 4-score win.
Oh, I think they will pull away with some touchdowns late. Ryan Day wants style points just to make a statement. It will be early. I think Michigan State will show a fight. That second half goes, I'm saying 27, 30-point win for the Buckeyes.
It's an Abraham Lincoln game, 4 scores.
4 scores, yes, 7 years ago.
Oh, our country. Oh, the great times with Mr. Lincoln. All right, Fresh. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's go to the game of the week, the game that a lot of you have been waiting for. Well, maybe not. I don't know if you're a Notre Dame fan or Ohio State fan or Penn State fan. Maybe you're not waiting for this game because your game's not pretty much the same time. The Georgia Bulldogs, they are traveling to Tuscaloosa to face the Alabama Crimson Tide. Both teams are 3-0. At time of record, Georgia is a 2-point road favorite. Over-under is set at 48.5. Fresh, I got some thoughts. I got some comments there. But, as always, you're the resident Georgia fan. I'll turn it over to you.
Well, folks, Dogs haven't won in Tuscaloosa or even beat Alabama below the Mason-Dixon line since September of 2007. Actually, Seth and I, we were roommates in college at that time. We watched that game together. Overtime winning Stafford. Seems like you watch the grainy film, you're like, wow, that makes me feel really old that we were watching that. It's a true measure, though. Measure's good for Kirby and this Georgia football program. Can they finally beat Alabama? We had the national championship win, which is amazing. But is that like a blip on the radar? Was that just like a fate kind of, storybook ending? Or is that the sign of things to come? Like, all right, we got one, we gave one back, but now we can start the momentum building. Kirby, 1-5 of his last 6. If the Dogs can't win this, it's going to hang over the program. Yeah, they just can't beat Alabama. And that's going to be just a gray shadow hanging over the program. Can't beat Alabama. With or without Nick Saban. You can't win in Atlanta against them. You can't win in Athens against them. You can't win in Tuscaloosa. That's the pressure that, pressure's a privilege, but you've got to break through that eventually at some point to really assert yourself. We all keep saying Kirby's the best coach in the SEC, best coach in college football. That ghost of Nick Saban is still there. If you can't go in Alabama and get that W with the program what is it? It's something that's going to be like a stink around the thing. It's not going to be destroying the program. Might not even destroy the season. You might get revenge against them later on down the road, but that element will still be hanging there, and it's going to be used in recruiting. It's going to be used from fans going back and forth, and it just becomes something that you can't get rid of. And that's what also that stake in this game is getting over that hump, shaking that monkey off your back, and finally getting the win. Last year, we thought it was going to be 2 in a row, SEC title game. Alabama was coming limping in. Georgia was on a undefeated run, hadn't lost it forever. And they just showed up, Alabama did, and they punched the dogs in the mouth, and they won the ball game. That, again, the roadblock was still there. You couldn't get over that hurdle. That's got to change. 24 points. That is the real key for the Dogs. Under Kirby, the Dogs have scored 24 points or less versus Alabama, and they are 0-4 in those ball games. They're 1-1 when they score more than that, obviously the Natty. And then in the 2018 SEC championship game when Jalen Hurts replaced two at halftime, it was a 35-28 ball game. That offense has got to show up and put points on the board. They've got to attack Alabama's defense. This Alabama defense is not the Alabama defense of the past, but there's still a lot of talent over there. You've got to come in and play a little more loose, disciplined football, but you've got to score touchdowns and stop settling for field goals. If you score 24 or less, that defense better be pitching shutout for you guys to get the W. As a higher seed by the AP poll or college football playoff, the Dogs is the higher seed versus Alabama since 2008. They're 0-5. They're number 2 right now. Alabama's number 4. Again, letdown games where you come in higher ranked, expectations, and you fail to live up to them. Another thing that's hanging over this program that has to sort of change is Georgia really wants to become that consistent replacement of Alabama was from 07 through 2023. You've got to start shedding that label, winning the games as the higher seed, dominating and showing that you are now the true alpha in the entire group. If you lose again, things can unravel, questions are arising, Kirby started having to answer those questions in press conferences again and again and again, and it becomes something that really becomes a painful moment in the program. All those storylines aside, this game is always going to be about physicality and line scrimmage and who's going to show up and get it done. Right now, Georgia and that Kentucky game had a lot of defensive linemen out. They had 3 guys sit out, including Michael Williams. Looks like Brinson and Hall are going to play. Williams is looking good, but there's no concrete evidence if he's actually going to play or not. If he shows up, he brings a pass rush dynamic to help set the edge against Jalen Miller. That's pretty important. If not, you're going to see a lot more Georgia linebackers having to set the edge and play out there and get more rotation. The good thing is the Dogs have tons of depth at linebacker, but being physical at the line of scrimmage, being a forceful aggressor is what you're going to have to need from the Georgia front 7 to attack Milroe, to contain him, to shut down the running game, and make him try to beat you with his arm. Offensively, Tate Rallies got hurt in that Kentucky game in the offensive line. They looked okay, but they have not opened the hole for the running game like we want to see, we expected. How's this offensive line for the Dogs? Own the line of scrimmage, open up holes for the running game, and protect Carson Beck and let the receivers get their things done. This is a statement game. We saw it look great the second half versus Clemson. The first half, they're kind of iffy. I'm not even going to worry about Tennessee Tech. That game for the second teamers on the Dogs are better than Tennessee Tech. But then Kentucky, we all saw it. 13-12, they struggled, making some drops, not getting the right reads. Protection was a little weak, not getting the holes. Where's this offense going to take the next step? I don't even think it's Mike Bobo. Everyone's like, it's Bobo, it's Bobo. The guy's got to execute on the field, folks. The offensive line got to execute. The quarterback's got to execute. The receivers got to execute. Are you truly worthy? Last year was great and all, but you've got to show up and get it done in the big game. Make your plays happen. You've been through 2 weeks of hard practice. How do you show up and get it done? That's what I want to see. Which receivers are going to rise up? Can Etienne stop dancing in the backfield? Can he hit a hole and go? Can Frazier get more playing time? Love it. Bell, Humphreys, Arian Smith, Colby Young. Which of these receivers are going to show up, not just blocking in the running game, but making big catches on third down, keeping the drives going? These are the things we got to see from Georgia in a big, big game. That it's great. They did it versus Tennessee. They beat the trash out of them all the time. They did it versus Ole Miss. They beat the trash out of them. They did it versus Florida State. They'll take care of business against other people, but Alabama's a different beast. When will they show up and get it done consistently against Alabama? That mindset, you've got to go out there and just conquer the demon yourself. You can't just pray for it to happen. You've got to take action and get it done. Execute every single play. Flipping to the other side. Alabama. First week of the season, Western Kentucky, no competition whatsoever. He took care of business. It looks fantastic. USF for the second year in a row, punched you in the mouth and had you guys on upset alert, upset watch. It didn't look pretty. The funny part I see is everybody in that week between USF and Wisconsin was like, is Alabama really truly back? Are they struggling? Are they real Alabama? Are there kicks in the over? Is Jalen Milroe really going to be able to get it done? Is this defense good enough? Lo and behold, they go to Wisconsin, they beat the trash on the Badgers. And everything seems like it's all great and everything's wonderful. There's still some issues with that offensive line for Alabama playing cohesively and getting it done and protecting Milroe. The running game hasn't been as dominant as I think we want to see. The passing game, outside of Ryan Williams, who's been phenomenal. By the way, if you haven't heard for the millionth time, he's 17 years old. Outside of him, who else can be the number 2 receiver to help build that passing game? Milroe has definitely grown. He is a weapon. His legs make him good. He's a strong arm. He's a strong dude. Kind of reminds me of a skinnier, he's well-built, skinnier kind of Cam Newton. He has an arm. He can run. He has a charismatic attitude that keeps the team sort of fired up. How do you sort of minimize him and force him to just be a thrower? Put one arm behind his back and make him play like that. That's how you're going to attack this team. For Alabama, how do you protect? How do you keep this offense fully wide open, running and passing, and every element fully available to that team? If the Alabama team that went out to Wisconsin, especially in that last drive, they got the ball back with like a minute before halftime, and the 3 plays, boom, 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 they went and scored a touchdown, which was extremely impressive. If that team shows up on Saturday, it could be a long afternoon for that, a long evening for that Georgia secondary. If the team that played versus USF, who got punched in the mouth, who was hit at the line of scrimmage, the offensive line struggled with, they show up, they're going to get their breaks beat off of them. What USF did in the Alabama game, it's kind of what Kentucky did. They played just the line of scrimmage. They shortened things up. They made it very, very difficult to complete deep plays. They played safeties deep, and they forced everything under, and they got physical at the line of scrimmage. Whichever offense can flip the switch and play aggressive and be able to adapt will be very successful in this football game. Line of scrimmage, line of scrimmage, line of scrimmage. And the one thing that worries me about both these teams is their tackling. Didn't see very good tackling from Alabama early on, especially the USF game, and did not see good tackling from Georgia against Kentucky. Whichever defense can tackle and own the line of scrimmage is they're going to have a very, very productive day on defense. It's been a long week of chatter. It's been 2 weeks off of both these teams. A lot of hitting in practice, a lot of chatter, a lot of things being said in the offseason by current Alabama quarterback. I'm going to say it right now. I've never been more confident about a Georgia team going to an Alabama game in my entire life than I am in this Saturday. Georgia, I'm not going to say it's 1 point. I don't care if it's 20. Georgia's going in Tuscaloosa angry. They've been yelled at. They've been told they stink for 2 weeks. They were dropped in the rankings. They've been told they quit in the SEC championship game, which may be a fact. Who knows? But they've been told all this negative information. They've been hitting everybody. This team is motivated. They're locked in, and they understand how the season almost was destroyed last week. This is going to be a statement by the Bulldogs. They're going in Tuscaloosa. They're going to get the W, and they're going to sort of release some demons from that perspective and really supplant themselves again as a national championship contender and say, hey, we are not gone yet. We are here, still here. We can beat good football teams. That Kentucky game is just a Kentucky game, and it's over. You still got to come play us. You still got to deal with us. You got to face us. And we are here. We're going to be here for a long time. Georgia wins, and it's in a very convincing fashion. Alabama will put up a fight in the first half, and the Dogs will pull away.
2007, Fresh. Since 2007, Alabama is 8-1 against Georgia. Combined wins by 75 points. They've won, those 8 wins are by 75 points total. Yeah, a lot's going to be made that Nick Saban's not walking up and down the sidelines anymore for the Crimson Tide, and that Kirby Smart has been anointed as the best coach in the SEC. He's been anointed that he's the best coach in college football. He has 2 national titles in recent memory, and that's really how we become a prisoner of the moment. People are going to anoint Kirby Smart as the top coach there, and rightfully so. He's done a great job at Georgia, especially with where Mark Richt was on these things. I've noticed this in the last 2 years. Georgia as a road team is a different beast than Georgia in Athens. They only went on the road 3 times last year. And I'm going to call back to a game on the Plains last year in October where Georgia was struggling with a very I don't want to say underrated or crappy, but underwhelming Auburn team. And it took a miracle effort by Brock Bowers to win the football game. I didn't see enough from them to feel very confident in this. There's some concerns I also have with the injuries. Yeah, you talk about the depth, but the thing I hate more than anything else is next man up. I hate that saying. I think it's completely ridiculous. I understand the premise behind it, but I hate the saying of next man up because it takes away of the person that is in front of you and what that person has done, saying that you have to match that that level. I want to know how Georgia's going to stop a guy like Ryan Williams. I want to know how you're going to stop the run against Jam Miller, who's averaging close to 10 yards a carry, Justice Haynes as well. Milroe is definitely improving, and Kalen DeBoer, it's slowly looking like he was the right choice to replace Nick Saban. The guy can coach football. He's a very, very good football coach. I don't necessarily know if he's going to have the aura of Nick Saban, but I will tell you this. You talked about how all week long this game has meant a lot to Kirby Smart. It's meant a lot to the Bulldogs. This is a game. They're amped up. They're talking. They're saying all this. And I'm going to tell you what's going on in Alabama. What's going on in Alabama is Kalen DeBoer is looking at it and saying, I have the ghost of Nick Saban haunting my dreams. He haunts my office. He haunts the hallways. He looms over this program. I have the daunting task of trying to live up to arguably the greatest college football coach ever to stand on a sideline. And doesn't even help, too, that not only do I have Nick Saban, but I have Bear Bryant, who looms in, his ghost still looms over there. Kalen DeBoer needs this game desperately. He needs this game. He needs an early statement win to exercise the ghosts of Nick Saban and Bear Bryant, and for him to start to be even like respected. Because if he loses this game, there's no shame in losing this football game. If Alabama loses to Georgia, there's no shame on it. You're not going to sit there and be like, oh my gosh, what a terrible loss. You lost to one of the top 5 teams, the national title contender at home, is what it is. But you know what's going to happen with that fan base is that there's going to be whispers. Nick Saban wouldn't have lost that game. Nick Saban, if he was still with us, we would have won that football game. Kirby can't beat Nick Saban. He can't do any of those things. That's going to be the chatter from the Alabama fan base. And Kalen DeBoer knows that I guarantee you, he wants this game. He wants this game as much as he wants oxygen in his lungs to breathe. And I guarantee you, Kirby Smart wants this game. He wants to go back into Alabama. He wants to say that you can forget about the last 15 years, that was against a different team. It is a new era in the SEC. This game is going to be a dogfight. It is not going to be decided until the very, very end of the fourth quarter. I don't care what anyone else says. I believe this fully. This game will never be out of reach for either team. It may come down to just who gets the football last. My thing is, Fresh, I stick with history over time. I think I'm starting to really worry about what I saw in the Kentucky game with some of the injuries. I'm not so worried about what I saw play on the field wide because I think Georgia can correct those things. I'm more worried about the injury bugs starting to chip away at that front line depth. I know Georgia's got depth behind them that is very, very talented. But when you're going up against a team that is equally as talented as you, like Alabama is, that's when if they were playing South Carolina this weekend, I wouldn't be worried about, because your 2 deep is outclasses South Carolina's 1 deep. Alabama's able to match up with you. That's when injuries come into play. That's when you say, even if that guy is a split second slower, or just doesn't react at that quickness as the starter would have, that's when these type of games are changed. I'm going Alabama. I'm going to say this. I think every coach needs that story around him. Every coach needs a dragon to slay. And I don't think this is the time. I think the better story is DeBoer is the one who ends Georgia's regular season winning streak. Alabama is going to see Georgia saying they're not going to walk into Tuscaloosa as a 2-point favorite and get a win out of our house. So I'm going with the Crimson Tide in this. I think that DeBoer, but I'm going here late field goal. Alabama wins 27-24 in this football game. Last second field goal by the Tide to win the football game.
I mean, I think it's going to be interesting. You have Georgia's defense is better than Alabama's defense, but I think right now Alabama's offensive line is better than Georgia's offensive line. So you're going to see a very talented offense for Alabama versus a very good defense. That is really an interesting story. How does Milroe improve? Last year they played him. How does he evolve, and how does the defense change? On the other side, Carson Beck, big road game for you, big opportunity. Can you show up and get it done in Tuscaloosa, the lights are the brightest? Like I said earlier, dogs are winning. I've never been more confident in my entire life that dogs beating Alabama. It's going to be a breakthrough moment for the team, and they'll keep them going to the next week.
I'm just intrigued. Really the question I'm going to ask, who's Georgia matching up with Ryan Williams?
I really hope it's not Dylan Everett. Give me Ellis Robinson. Give me Julian Humphrey on him. I got a feeling they're going to have Malachi Stokes hovering over top the entire time.
They're going to need to bracket him. But then the question goes, what does that open up if they have to do that? So it's going to – that's the fun thing about a game like this. This is
how you sort of match it up.
It's a cat and mouse game. It's like, okay, if you're going to do this, then we're going to do this. If you do that, then we're going to come back and do this. It is really that back and forth football game. And these are all the reasons why I feel like, again, if you tell me Georgia has if you can tell me right now, that Georgia will have the football on the right before time expires and will have the opportunity to win the football game, I'll tell you Georgia will win it. Alabama, if they have the football at the end of it with a chance, they're going to win it. It's going to be whoever has the football last. That's how I feel. I'm going to go Alabama in this one. But again, I'm saying we're talking razor thin margin here.
Should be a fun Saturday night in T-Town.
Yep.
It's going to be a lot of fireworks, definitely for sure.
I might flip it over after Ohio State starts to run away with Michigan State.
After the second drive, when it's 14-0.
Probably about halftime. All right, Fresh. Let's go to our brown water bets this weekend. We had a rough weekend last week, folks. We do our brown water bets, but make sure you're doing this stuff responsibly. Don't do it if you can't do it, and only do it if you are of legal age. Fresh, I'll give you my game first. I went with the LSU Tigers playing South Alabama. I took LSU. I got minus 20.5. What are you taking in the South Alabama LSU game?
Well, you weren't allowed to take the money line LSU, and I don't know if the over-under is going to hit, so I kind of stayed away from that. I'm going to go with LSU to cover the 20.5. It worries me, but the way they actually kind of looked offensively, they started caught in some gears. The only thing that kind of worries me about this LSU covering is that the defense actually shows up and gets a couple stops. The South Alabama's looked pretty good in the last couple of games offensively. But give me LSU minus 20.5 at home, and just get out of there and move on.
Me too. All right, Fresh, what game do you pick?
I am going to a religious experience, if you will. Baylor hosting BYU. BYU had a massive dominating win over Kansas State. Maybe this is recency bias or, living in the moment. But for some reason, Vegas has Baylor favored by 2.5. Money line for BYU is plus 125. So I'm taking BYU money line to go in to Waco and get the W.
BYU is up to plus 140 on the money line. Yeah, I'm with you on that, Fresh. Give me BYU. Give me the Cougs. Soak it in.
It's weird,
folks.
though. what I'm trying to figure out what they saw in Baylor, who choked away versus Colorado and got, if Cam Rising played the whole time, got whooped up by Utah, and that game was over early. Where is some of Vegas knows something about Baylor and BYU? We'll see. It just smells kind of weird why they're the underdog and they're playing a terrible team in Waco.
Hey, Vegas always knows something that we don't. All right, Fresh. Our last game, this was given to us by our producer, Drew. It's the NC State Wolfpack. They're -5.5 versus Northern Illinois University. What are you taking in that football game?
I've actually gone back and forth on this for a long time. Was Northern Illinois upset on Notre Dame? Was that just like a flash in the pan because they lost to Buffalo in overtime? But NC State, you have looked, yikes, pretty terrible. So it's kind of like, where do you want to go? The mind says go Northern Illinois, but you know what? I'm going to take NC State to cover the 5.5 and to get right, kind of realign the Wolfpack, and get them back on track before ACC play really kicks in, especially coming off a bad loss to Clemson. The Wolfpack at home cover the 5.5.
Fresh. NC State's look bad, like Buzz Your Girlfriend Wolf type of bad. I'm taking Northern Illinois and the 5.5 in this game. I almost took the over-under, but I couldn't decide which way I wanted to go because I honestly think if Northern Illinois wins this football game, the over's going to hit. But if NC State wins, the under's going to hit. So I'll take.
Speaking of NC State, where is Kevin Concepcion been? Are they triple covering him? Like, this guy has been a stud. He's not getting the football. What's going on, Wolfpack?
His face is on a milk carton, missing today.
It's on a milk carton.
Right. Kids, back in the day, they used to put missing people on a milk carton. I won't even take my time explaining that one. All right, folks, you've been listening to another episode of the Irrational Confidence Podcast. Hey, before you head out of here, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, get notified every single time we drop a new episode. Make sure that you are subscribing to the YouTube channel, SpinnableSports.com. Make sure that you are visiting the website, SpinnableSports.com, because the Irrational Podcast is part of Irrational Confidence Podcast, is part of SpinnableSports.com. Special thanks to our producer, Drew. Without him, none of this is possible, so big shout-out to him. Fresh, that's all I got. Make sure you leave us that 5-star review. What else you got for us?
Big weekend of football, folks. Dixieland Delight, that's a song that will not be played in my house this week. Let's get after it. Enjoy us and hit up SpinnableSports.com, hit up our YouTube channel, and mess with us on Twitter. Let's have a great weekend. And with that, go Dogs. Bye, y'all.